Hey, what's up guys? In today's video, we're going to be testing 15 games on the new M4 MacBook Air. Enjoy! Before we get into this, here are the specs of my MacBook Air. Our first game to look at is Stranding, which is still, even though it's a pretty old game, it's likely remains one of the most demanding native games that we can try on Mac. Anyway, how does the game fare on this MacBook Air? So I tried the game at 1080p with graphics quality on default. And at first this provides up to 60 FPS. But what's going to become a reoccurring theme in this video is the device throttles and can go down into the low 40s. In this scene, I'm just exploring outside and then fighting some people, and it's about 40 to 50 FPS. Where the game really struggles, based on my testing, is during beached things encounters. So here we are, a bit later in the game, and we're going up against a beached thing. And this is where the frame rate goes down to the low 30s. Yeah, and this is without metal effects. So if we then put metal effects to temporal upscale and balanced mode at the same settings, default graphics quality, this provides, for the most part, 60 FPS with some minor dips into the 50s. It is dramatically better. However, do I recommend doing this? It's up to personal opinion. Metal effects temporal is visually a lot better than metal effects spatial if you use it in the game. And this obviously does provide quite a substantial boost in performance. You could definitely lower some of the settings and enable a 60 FPS cap, and it might work a bit better. However, I still think the device is gonna throttle for this game. It's a pretty big game. So what I prefer doing on this Mac is enabling a 30 FPS cap, and then I can play at very high graphics quality, and this is without metal effects enabled, so it's native 1080p. Now what this provides is a locked 30 FPS with, for the most part, good frame pacing. Sometimes when you're going up against beach things, it can drop just a teeny bit, so you could definitely play around with metal effects here or lower some settings, but on this MacBook Air, or any MacBook Air for this game, I would definitely suggest enabling 30 FPS for a better experience. And this means the device doesn't get really that hot, because it gets really hot if you're aiming for anything above 30. Moving on, we have Cyberpunk 2077. Now, it is worth noting, this is not the native port. I don't know when that's coming. This is the version running under Crossover 25, and also Game Porting Toolkit version 2.1. Now, before we get into all this, it's worth noting that this means the game is not native. It's being translated from DirectX 12 to Metal. Anyway, I first tried the game at a preset of medium at 1080p, and the performance is not great. It provides 21.73 FPS. So what I did was I enabled AMD FSR 3 on balanced mode, and then I also enabled FrameGen, which is both of these features are supported under Crossover 25 now, and this provided a much higher FPS of 53.08. And here we are actually in the campaign driving around. I have never really played this game, so this gameplay isn't very exciting, but it is visually, you can definitely notice AMD FSR and also frame gen. There are some visual artifacts with frame gen enabled. I don't know if you can notice it in video, but in person you definitely can. And this is obviously one of the caveats of frame gen as well, regardless of whether or not if this is native or not. But this is what I found provided the best performance on this MacBook Air. I personally wouldn't suggest going out and playing the game this way. It doesn't probably run to acceptable results at the moment. I would just wait for the native port, and yeah, I don't know when that's coming, but it probably will run better than this. I also did try enabling ray tracing. This is the only game on this list that I tried ray tracing with, and it doesn't run well. And this is also with path tracing off. So I've got ray traced reflections on, ray traced sun shadows, ray traced local shadows, ray traced lighting. That's on medium, and this provided about 22.55 FPS. And in many ways, actually, it's kind of cool that it was that it's working this well. Here we have Grid Legends by Feral Interactive. So this game isn't that demanding, really. So it runs pretty well here, actually. I first tried the game at a preset of medium at 1080p, and I tried out the benchmark mode, and this provided about 53.2 FPS, which is not too bad. The game actually doesn't throttle too hard on this MacBook Air, and Feral Interactive are really good at optimizing games for MacBook Air, so it doesn't throttle as hard. It does get hot, but it doesn't impact the FPS too much. I then tried the game at the same settings, but putting TAA plus Metal Effects Spatial. I enabled that and put it to balanced, and this provides a bit better performance with 57.28. It's actually not that substantial for some reason, and yeah, so you could probably play around with some settings there and get 60 FPS maybe more comfortably. I can't confirm if the device is going to always maintain 60 though. What I did as well, I played the game at 1440p, and then I enabled a high preset with 30 FPS, and I don't have metal effects enabled. And the game is perfectly playable like this if you don't mind 30 FPS. It does fairly well. It has some frame pacing issues, but you know, this is running at 1440p on a MacBook Air, a fanless MacBook Air that is so thin. I just think it's really cool. Really cool. Anyway, the average FPS was 29.7, so yeah, it's pretty good. Now it's time to look at Resident Evil 4. Now, right now, this game is having some kind of weird issues on this MacBook Air, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but it's got some weird micro stuttering going on, and I don't know if you can notice it in the video, but it was very noticeable in person. It kind of just like goes blip, blip, like just randomly. Anyway, the game is, this is quite a demanding game. So I played it at prioritized performance preset, which is basically a mix of low and medium settings. And on paper, it provides about 60 FPS, but after maybe 10 or so minutes of gameplay, the game throttles pretty hard, and it will go down to about 40 FPS. So yeah, it's the same story as Death Stranding and a lot of other games. But what I found was prudent or could help was obviously enabling metal effects quality. Now do keep in mind, metal effects quality here uses temporal upscaling. So what am I going to say? Metal effects in this game kind of sucks. Leon's hair in particular just looks absolutely disgusting. So I don't really like playing this way, but it does, for the most part, provide 60 FPS with some minor drops into the 50s. I don't know, I don't like the image quality with metal effects in this game. It just looks, ugh. Obviously, we have to look at another Resident Evil game. I'm not going to look at them all because there's so bloody many of them on Mac. But this is RE2, which is actually my favorite Resident Evil game of all time, and it's probably in my top 5 games of all time. Anyway, it obviously runs dramatically better than RE4, because it's a much older game. So it makes sense that it runs better. But keep your expectations in check, guys. Keep your expectations in check. This is a fanless laptop, so it's still going to throttle, which is going to impact performance. This is prioritized performance preset at 1080p. And for the most part, this provides about a little over 60 FPS for the majority of my gameplay that I tested. And that's really, really cool. You could definitely play around with some settings and metal effects to get a more even frame pacing for 60 FPS, but again, I can't confirm with you that you're going to get a lock 60. What else? What else did I do? What I also did was I put metal effects to quality at these settings, and metal effects in this title is a bit better than RE4. The issues with Leon's hair isn't as noticeable, in my opinion. Others might disagree, but this provides well over 60 FPS. So this is a good option, and metal effects could allow you to play at some higher settings. I also play the game at higher settings, prioritize graphics in 1440p, but with a 30 FPS cap. This is the best I could get the game to look on this machine while maintaining 30 FPS. And it looks really good. But this is an option for those of you who want to play the game with higher visuals. I personally think this game is more enjoyable at 60 frames, so I don't actually like playing the game this way, but some of you might be able to get by. I don't know. Okay. Here we have Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, I want to stress again really, really hard before you judge the performance here and go, oh, this is disgusting, fail. But this is not native. This is Red Dead Redemption. Let me repeat to you again. This is Red Dead Redemption running on a freaking MacBook Air. What? Okay, now, with that in mind, we are running the game at 1080p and basically low graphics, and I've got AMD FSR 2 on balanced. I didn't play around, or I'm not showing many other settings for this game because it took a really long time to get this game to be somewhat playable. I would not suggest in the slightest bit that you play this game on this Mac if you are looking for a good time, because it plays like it doesn't play well, obviously. But it's still really cool that it's working here. This is a huge game, and it's a technical feat that code weavers have got this game, working somewhat here. It's so freaking cool. For better performance for this game on Mac, you need a Pro or a Max chip on base M1 to M4. It doesn't really play at acceptable results. Lies of P. Okie dokie. So, like Resident Evil 4, this one has some weird issues going on right now with its frame pacing. It's kind of just like it's stuttering randomly, and it is annoying because this game requires a locked 60 FPS to be really experienced well, because it's all about parrying attacks and so forth. So I also tried enabling a 60 FPS cap on my 120Hz monitor just to see if I could get rid of the weird frame pacing issues, and while it is definitely better, I could still notice it. Again, I don't know if it's noticeable in this video. I don't know. It really was in person. But when this gets fixed, I think that the game should be really enjoyable here. I really don't want to show this game because it makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. This is Baldur's Gate 3, one of the biggest games from the past 5 years. And the fact that it's on Mac is incredible. It's incredible because of how big it is. But it plays terribly, absolutely terribly. And the developer who used to work on this Elverell's got this game working really well, but then Larian stopped working with them, and now the port just runs so poorly, and it's very, very, very disappointing. For starters, AMD FSR in this game just looks really, really bad. No matter the mode you choose, it just looks dreadful because it just looks really muddy. I also tried playing the game at 900p high and enabling a 30 FPS cap and double buffering, just to see if I could get the game to be more playable, and this is without AMD FSR, and it runs terribly, down to 20 FPS.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool, that's awesome.
Are you on the M4 MacBook Air?
I am, and it's quite hot. Hang on.
How's your FPS?
Well, it's about 40 at the moment. It's not amazing, and I'm playing at medium, but
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, now I'm getting like a daytime. Wow, okay, 35 FPS.
It's interesting. I'm on the M4 Mini, balanced Metal FX upscaling, medium low settings, getting around 60 right now.
And I'm getting 45 at completely low.
Whoa!
Oh yes, you got that. Now do keep in mind this isn't my...
Oh my goodness.
This isn't my base. I don't take the credit for it.
Now it is. Now it's yours.
Technically it's mine now, but
oh my gosh.
I don't even know what all these are.
Look at all these pals.
Yeah. God, my frame rate's terrible here. Where are you?
Here I'm getting about 55.
I'm getting like 40. Up next is Total War Warhammer 3, which is a pretty old AAA game now, but it remains a very, very demanding title. So I first played the game at 1080p medium, and I tried out the benchmark tool. The game is running okay, I guess. This is an absolutely massive game, and at the same time, some of you might be disappointed by the frame rate, but the MacBook Air gets really hot, which is a recurring theme and it's completely normal. And also, I just want to point out that this is a strategy game and it doesn't really require a super high frame rate to be enjoyed, in my personal opinion. So it is okay that it's getting these results in the battle mode, and then in the campaign benchmark it plays a bit worse. That is a more demanding scene, but again, I think you can probably have an okay time here. Here we have The Last of Us, which isn't running native. This is through Crossover 25. And this is my favorite video game of all time, so the fact that I'm playing it on a MacBook Air is super cool. It has lots of issues, and I wouldn't recommend playing it on this Mac, but I just wanted to see how it performs. So this is low graphics, and I've got AMD FSR 3.1 on balanced, and I've got a 30 FPS cap enabled, just so I could see if I could get better frame pacing. But for some reason, the 30 FPS cap doesn't really do anything, I believe, because it's going above 30. I also have frame generation enabled too. I almost forgot that. It's working here. It's working. It's really cool that it's actually working this well. But yeah, I wouldn't go like, oh my god, I'm gonna go out there and play this game on my MacBook Air. No, you've got much better other options out there on a Windows laptop or so forth. But again, I credit code weavers because they are really smart people, and I want Apple to work more with them, and because work more with them, let them work on some native games for Mac. I don't know how that works. I don't know if they're already working together, but it would be cool if they could work more together, or if they aren't, if they could just work together. Sniper Elite 4. Okie dokie. So there's not really that much to talk about with this one. So I'm playing at 1080p and ultra graphics, and the game runs really well. And this game didn't make the MacBook Air hot at all. We must remember this game is very old. In terms of games, it's from 2017, so it's obvious that it's going to run very well here. And it's also a really fun game. Definitely check it out. I want to show you one more game under crossover, and this is Street Fighter 6. This game, out of all the crossover games, this one runs the best, but it's probably not anywhere near as demanding as the other ones I've shown. So I'm playing here at normal quality at 1080p. What I have noticed with this game running on Mac through crossover is that it has an in-game FPS cap of 60, even though I've got my FPS toggle on 120. There it goes above 60, which is kind of strange. Otherwise, it runs for the most part pretty well with about 50 to 60 FPS. Which isn't too bad, really. This is a fighting game. I don't think it requires a completely locked 60 to be playable. It's fine. Okay, I wanted to show an indie game, like a smaller indie game, because this one runs really well here. This is Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. It is running really well here at 1440p, ultra graphics. And it is providing a locked 60 FPS. Now, one disappointing thing with this port is that Ubisoft have put an in-game FPS cap of 60, so it can't get above this on any Mac. Even on my monitor, which has a max refresh rate of 144 Hz, it still stays at 60. It is a little bit disappointing, because I think it probably can push above 60 FPS at 1440p Ultra. Ubisoft have said that they are going to put out an update so it can run above this, but it's been a few months since they've said that and it's not here yet, so I don't know if it's ever coming. Hopefully it is. But otherwise, the game runs really well here. It's not a demanding title. It runs great all the way back to M1, so we shouldn't be expecting anything else. But I wanted to show this as an example of how the MacBook Air is still really good for playing, these smaller indie games. Okay, our last game to look at is Civilization 7. Now, this game has an in-game benchmark tool, which is what we are going to use. So I'm playing at a graphics profile of medium with 1080p resolution, and I tried out the graphics benchmark mode, which is really quick, and it provides about 16 ms, which is about 61 FPS, I think. And I also then did the what's it called? The AI benchmark, and this goes for a really long time, because it goes through, the turns, and it provided an average turn time of 25.397. To be honest, I don't really know what that means, but you can let me know if that's good. There are some issues with this game. One is the mouse cursor isn't using the actual in-game cursor. That's kind of a small thing. Also, AMD FSR. This game contains AMD FSR 1 and 3, and they both on this Mac do nothing. Doesn't improve performance at all. It just remains the same. So I don't think it's like visually you can tell a difference, but it's not doing anything. That's that. But otherwise, I think the game actually runs pretty well here. I just wanted to make a quick note on comparing this MacBook Air to last year's one and also my M4 Mac Mini, because I know a lot of people are going to go, why is like an M4 Mac Mini or a MacBook Pro running these games so much better? And what a lot of people forget to realize is that the MacBook Air doesn't have a fan. So these games throttle because the device gets so hot without having a fan. So the frame rate tanks dramatically. So I'm showing Resident Evil 4 here, and I did a time lapse of about 20 minutes, and you can see like the M3 and M4 MacBook Air over that duration just drop dramatically. And this is why I still, even on the M4 MacBook Air, in many cases recommend capping the frame rate at 30, because a lot of the times, by the time you've played these games for just 20 or so minutes, the frame rate's so low, so you may as well enable 30 FPS. And it's the same story in Death Stranding. The difference with performance is still pretty big between each of these devices. And I also compared my M4 MacBook Air against my M4 iPad Pro, and these devices are hardware-wise are dramatically different, and they use a different operating system. And people are like, why is my iPad running this game so badly while your MacBook Air is running the game so much better? People, they're completely different hardware. Okay, so that was gaming on the M4 MacBook Air. I think at the end of the day, is this a gaming computer? No, there's no such thing as a Mac gaming computer. I think we all know that. And it would be misleading for me to say that there is such a thing as a Mac gaming computer, because I say it every time I make these videos, there's not enough native Mac ports to warrant me saying that they are official gaming computers. But also at the same time, anything can be a gaming device. Like if you enjoy playing games in it, then that's up to you. But for me, in my opinion, MacBook Air or Mac, the hardware these days is there. We all know that. They're very capable for playing games, but there's not enough native ports. We have things like Crossover and Whiskey and virtual machines that we can play games on, but I personally find doing that a little bit annoying, and the performance is often here and there, and it's paying for subscriptions and so forth. So I think we need, everyone always blames Apple, but we need more developers to show interest in the platform, and we need the general public to have a better opinion on what Mac gaming is until things can get better. But I haven't really said much about the MacBook Air. So yeah, it can play games pretty well. It's just, it throttles, and I knew it wouldn't be fixed. That's to be expected. It doesn't have a fan, so it's really hard for games to maintain high frame rates compared to a MacBook Pro or a Mac Mini or an iMac, which has a fan. It's pretty self-explanatory. But, for a machine that starts at 1,000 US, it's not too bad, really. It's actually, if you're looking at it outside of gaming, it's pretty good value for money. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say. Should we be celebrating this MacBook Air release? For gaming, probably not. For other reasons, maybe, yeah. It's, as I said, it's good value for money. I don't really know.